you inferred that those prospects might be more attractive than the basin bounding fault plays. And I guess just a related question that, let's say if you do test the Upper Laconia at Twiga South and it doesn't work, the reservoir is a bit tight there, then might that influence in the near term going to Canberra or Lockero instead of Congoni? And then just secondly, on the MDT in the tighter play, is there any, can we infer from how quickly it took the MDT tank to fill up about the productivity of that lower zone?
Yeah, I think I probably can't comment on that second point. I think that we haven't disclosed that information, and I think I would wait till again. Even if we were to disclose it, I think it's misleading. A small little MDT sample as opposed to a proper test is going to be the better gauge of what the permeability of these fractured reservoirs are. Obviously, fractured reservoirs in many places are highly productive, and I think that's one of the things that we're excited about is that perhaps with the introduction of this brittle fractured rock, we might see very good flow rates if those fractures are open and clean. As far as the potential for better reservoir in the Cambo-Locoro trend, that's really based on some of the things that Pello has seen in the Uganda play. They drilled a number of wells along the basin margin, Kingfisher, and Tulsa, some of those, which generally had dirtier sands. And then when they moved to Joby Ree and the advanced portion of the play, they saw that these sands are cleaner. And one of the reasons are that they are more axial, that these sands are basically being deposited longitudinally down the basin, so they have the chance to be cleaned up and have the fines winnowed out of them. Whereas the sands on the edge of the basin, both in Uganda and in Kenya, in our string of pearls play, may be derived more locally, alluvial sands or very short distance transport, and therefore have more clays in them. I think we will drill one of those wells. There's no issue about drilling Kamba or one of the ones around Kamba, and we will continue to go along the string of pearls. Again, we've seen evidence that there are some very good quality reservoirs along that trend, and really without testing them and doing proper core, we're not going to be able to tell how much of that large 143 meters of depth is going to be eventually productive without testing them and without drilling further wells and further study.
Okay, so just a quick follow-up, if I may. I mean, could we say that the overall strategy is to test as many players as possible rather than focusing on getting towards commercial volume as quickly as possible? And I guess if it's the former, do you think that the government of Kenya is completely aligned with that strategy?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the two. I think we want to go out, and that's why we have multiple rigs. We want to go out and drill as many of these sub-basins as we can to prove which one of them is productive or not, so we can start designing our forward program to even bring in additional rigs if we do prove other sub-basins. At the same time, we do want to continue to move towards appraising these discoveries and drilling and getting to commercial thresholds if we can. One of the next steps we will be doing is shooting 3D seismic over Gamia, which I think is probably the smart thing to do before we go out and drill appraisal wells, so that we can image those faults, we can possibly image some of the sands, and we can more intelligently place our appraisal wells.
That's great. Thanks, Keith.
Your next question comes from Tom Dickinson with Dickinson Associates. Please go ahead.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask a question here. My question is concerning the 800 meters. And these reservoirs, with this section, this 800-meter section, would it be similar to the shales that you would see in Canada and the United States, where they had to go in there and they've had to frack it in order to get some of the oil out of the ground? And it seems that this reservoir that is in this play is already fractured of sorts. Would that mean, since it's fractured, that you would not have to go in there and to per se frack it again? I hope I asked this question in the right way.
I understand completely. So, I mean, what we know from the MDT test and from, we ran a log called an FMI log, is that there are fractures in this section. What we don't know is the extent of those fractures, the permeability of those fractures, and the producibility of those fractures. Until we test the well, we really can't answer that question. I said, once we do a test and we can get reservoir information on it, then we can figure out if it's a type of reservoir that could flow naturally, that possibly could require fracturing or other things. But at this point, we really just don't have enough information to make an intelligent decision on how this could potentially be developed, if it even is indeed prospective. There is a until we test and flow the well, we are aware that it's filled with oil and hydrocarbons. But as far as the productivity, only a well test will give us a better indication of that.
Thank you very much, Keith, for your answer. That's it for me.
Thanks.
Your next question on the line comes from Peter Hertzstedt with Pareto. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Keith. Thanks for setting up the call. It's much appreciated. My question is regarding the uptip potential, which you mentioned on this well, and as is well known on the Nagamia, and I mean that holds a significant part of the potential in both these wells. So, what kind of timing would you expect to see those being evaluated or appraised?
Unfortunately, because the reservoirs are relatively shallow, it can't be drilled with a sidetrack off of the existing well, or even off the existing well pad. So we will have to construct another well pad and drill an updip appraisal probably on both of those locations. So again, I think we, from a sequence standpoint, we'll have to meet with our partner and figure out when we want to time those. I mean, the most important thing for us now is get Twiga tested, get Gamia tested, and I think then drill Kungani and drill Kamba. And then I think we start thinking about how we want to start doing appraisal programs or doing up-dip tests or down-dip tests in some of the discoveries we have.
Okay. And with regards to the testing program, I mean, it's been said that it's something like 4 to 8 weeks to test Twiga, and then I suppose we're talking about the same kind of time frame for potentially for Nagamia. I mean, where does that put Kungani? Are we talking about Kungani then being drilled potentially not until Q2 or very late in Q1?
Yeah, I think the Pi rig will come free sometime probably early in the year. It does have a fairly long rig move. It has to be moved quite a distance from Block 10A around to the 10BD 13T area. So we haven't decided exactly whether it's going to go to Kungani or to Kamba, but likely it will go to one of those two and probably be the next well that will be spud in the sub-basin.
Okay. And just lastly, did I hear you correctly that you said it was about 40% sand to shale in the deeper section? And if so, I mean, were most of these sands actually hydrocarbon bearing, or is that all the sands, even if there were not any hydrocarbon shows in them?
Yeah, again, we need more analysis on that, on the petrophysical analysis. The sands did have some porosity, like 5 to 10%, so they weren't completely tight sands. But we don't have, we have a few sidewall cores that we hopefully can analyze, but we've still got a lot to learn about this reservoir.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
Your next question comes from John Utah with Presidential Capital Management. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking the call. Quick question in regards to the revised appraisal program. Is there any update on your capital plans for 2013 and the potential for up to $300 million in equity raise this year?
Yeah, if you look at our balance sheet, we have about $55 million in cash. We've just done a transaction with Marathon, put about another $32 million in the bank. So, doing the math, it's fairly simple to understand that at some point we're going to have to go back to the capital markets. But at this time, the timing, the price, and the amount of that capital financing is not yet been decided.
Very good. Thank you so much.
The next question comes from Tom Robinson with Nomura. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, Keith. Just one question, actually, please. Can I just go back to the deeper fractured play? I mean, and could you perhaps clarify what would you like to see there in terms of testing to get a better understanding of productivity from that play? And is this likely to influence any of your follow-on drilling plans for the rest of the basin? Thank you.
Yeah, I think generally in testing fractured reservoirs, which we've got a fair amount of experience from Kurdistan in our company Shamaran, and the testing methods there are slightly different. You don't want to put casing in hole and cement it because you end up cementing up the fractures. So we'll likely be considering what they call a barefoot test, which is an open hole test at the bottom of the casing. That will likely open a fairly large section to see if we can get these fractures to flow. But again, the final test design is still being discussed with Tullow, and I think Tullow will be presenting us a testing program in the near future.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Robert Hobbs, private investor. Please go ahead.
I've had my question answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Your next question comes from David Haas, private investor. Please go ahead.
I got my question answered too. Thanks.
Thank you. Your next question comes from Anthony Holmes, private investor. Please go ahead.
Mr. Hill, good morning. I'm interested in how things are going with the Kenyan government, both politically and also bureaucratically, in terms of perhaps getting rigs in and out of the country or moving them around. And secondly, how you see the implications of the elections next March on your operations and what precautions you might be taking if you think they're necessary.
Yeah, I'd say the answer to the first question, we've had very strong levels of cooperation from the Kenyan government as far as getting work done, as far as getting permits, as far as working with local people, local contractors. I'd have to give them very high marks in the cooperative way we work together. Some of the things that have been coming out of Kenya have been causing our investors a little bit of concern when they're talking about changing contract terms, changing government participation. We have confirmed with the minister and with the government and that existing PSA will not be subject to changing rules and changing contract terms. What the press and the minister have been talking about is new entrants into Kenya should expect to pay a significantly higher tariff to get in because the play has now been de-risked. They've been talking about doing bid rounds, asking for signature bonuses, and requiring a 25% government stake. But to emphasize and to confirm this with the minister that these are only for new contracts, that existing PSAs, there is no intention to alter the contract terms on them.
Okay, but this is the government itself rather than just individual parliamentarians seeking to attract attention.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and then the second part of your question, obviously, that with the elections coming up and the past elections having significant amount of turmoil and violence around them, we are keeping a very close tab. The Canadian High Commission is one of the ones that are monitoring the election, and we're keeping in close contact with them to, with their impressions. There has been a significant increase in violence in Kenya lately, but none of it has been related to the election as far as we can see. There's some pastoral issues with some of the local tribes fighting each other. There are also some issues with Al-Shabaab retaliating from some of the we believe, the incursion of Kenya into southern Somalia to help root out Al-Shabaab. So far, there isn't any significant election violence. But we will be raising security alerts. We will be taking precautions if we do start seeing some violence associated with the election. I think we're quite hopeful that it's going to be a smooth and peaceful election because of the hard lesson that was learned during the last election in terms of the loss of tourism, the loss of foreign investment, and I think the Kenyans themselves have stated that this will be a very big thing for them to make sure that the transition of power to the next government is peaceful.
So no direct impact on the drilling plans that you've discussed the past half hour?
Right now, we have no direct change. I'm living in Kenya now, so I've moved to Nairobi about 2 months ago. So, we keep a very close tab on it. There's no plan for me to evacuate or my family to evacuate, and I think, but we'll keep a close eye and monitor the situation as it develops.
Sounds promising. Thanks very much.